But why don't we start, Chewy, with sort of first thoughts around the debate. I watched the debate. I was tweeting about it. You watched the debate. I think a lot of people who are joining us now obviously watched the debate. What are your initial thoughts?
It's a weird mixture. It really is a weird mixture. Like, I think Luxon was unsettled. Like, he didn't seem comfortable, which is a place that I love to see him. And I think tonight he really showed when he was pushed off his bumper stickers, off the slogans. They were really holding a torch to him of like, no, answer your questions. I think I heard one comment from Hipkins saying that's a lot of words for no answer, and that's absolutely it. I think Chippy got mad. Chippy knew what hits were landing, and he kept on coming back to it. Um, the line of like, maybe you should look after your own house. At least my MPs don't beat up kids with.
Yep, we'll play that one for sure.
Off the couch at that point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's like I did like seeing a bit of fight in Chris Hipkins, but at the same time, the same disappointments are there of like, you let him run with these lies for so long before somebody else showed them to you.
Yeah.
You absolutely are still sticking to your guns on capital gains tax and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There was, I think, a missed opportunity to sort of go, well, at least we can work with our coalition partners.
Yeah.
I think that was quite notable in its absence.
Yep.
And just because of, I guess, moderation, there were a few chances to challenge some of Luxon's attack lines that just went begging. Like the one that screamed out at me is that housing under Labor has been an unmitigated disaster, which objectively it hasn't. Like, the only part of that you can say that is true is Kiwi Build didn't do what it was supposed to do. But they have made that up with a truly epic amount of public housing projects in the last couple of terms.
Yeah, I think Chippy did real well. I would definitely give the win to him tonight. I know that
easy
win to Chippy. I think that there was a lot of good points landed. I don't want to be negative on the performance because from a debate point of view, it was a good performance, but I don't want to say it's too little too late, because it's not, because as we know, it's a margin of error election at the moment. According to the polls, a lot of people are saying the polls are wrong and it's going to be a whitewash to the right. I mean, that may or may not be the case, but at the moment, according to the polls, it's a margin of error election. So it's not over, but as you were saying, I do wish these things had been coming up before. So for the first time ever in pretty much this whole election cycle, and I've seen a lot, I might not have seen all of it, but I've seen a lot. Fucking Chippy was like, we had the world's best response to COVID. It's the first time I've heard those words coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I may have missed it. I may have missed it, right? But we've been saying since day one, why are you shying away from this? Yes, there's going to be a bunch of people who don't like the mandate word or the vaccine word or the whatever. They're not going to vote for you anyway. Why aren't you reminding people what research has just shown us about 20,000 lives that were saved and the best in New Zealand, best in the world?
So, yeah, absolutely. Stop straying away from a massively popular response.
Play into your strengths, because there were some things from COVID that did impact New Zealand, like inflation, like Kiwi Build. I mean, the building, I was going to say industry kind of shut down for a year. Jib wasn't available for about 4 or 5 months of the year. So you got to take those lumps because of COVID, but I haven't heard at any stage the massive benefits. My dog's just snoring. That benefits as in what they did well in COVID. So it's like they had to take the lumps for it, but they've never sold how well they did. Like, I'm sure he said it other times, but tonight was the first time I've heard him say it on a big stage as bluntly as that, like owning it and saying, yes, we'll take that. We're best in the world. So, yeah, I think he did really well. It was a really good debate, but it was slightly frustrating as well, thinking, and as I said last night, maybe if there was another month, who knows? It wouldn't be as close as it's going to be, but it's going to be close. We are talking about the election, not the All Blacks game, eh? I just can't. I forgot in my head which one we're talking about.
You know, definitely
Okay.
politics, Pat.
Sorry.
Why would we talk about sport, you absolute unhinged madman?
So I have got some clips. Let's do some clips, eh? And I'm going to use some of the TVNZ pre-cut clips because actually the things I wrote down were who do you trust more? I also wrote down quickfire questions, and they were two clips that had already been cut by TVNZ. So we'll use their clips, and then we'll have a look at a little interaction around cutting benefits, and that's going to come from their stream. So let's jump in and have a look. We've tested the sound, haven't we? I wasn't quite sure about this. Yeah. This is the very start of the debate, them talking about trust and trusting leaders. And I'm actually quite surprised at one of the results that their poll showed up. Let's have a look.
Straight into it with a question from our latest One News Varian poll. And it goes to the heart of what people want to know. Who do you trust more? 43% say Chris Hipkins.
Yes.
While only 33% trust Christopher Luxon more.
Interesting and really fascinating this as well, because Luxon is ahead in one of the major preferred prime ministers, like by a point, and they're neck and neck in another one. So it's basically they're equal on preferred prime minister, but that's a pretty big disparity. You know, what is that? 4 and 10, 3 and 10. You know, 10, 50, well, it's 10%. It's 10% difference of trust. And obviously there are going to be some people in there that cross over that may both trust Hipkins and Luxon. But that's still telling, and that's telling, I guess, based around tax, not answering questions, not being relatable, this whole "we don't know you" thing. I thought that was really telling. What are you thinking, Joey?
Yeah, look, 33% trust Luxon more. Are they drunk?
No, but it doesn't mean they don't trust Hipkins. Remember, you might say I trust Hipkins and I trust Luxon. So this could be a unless they gave them the binary of which one out of these two do you trust more. But it does say who do you trust more. So I guess it is a binary. Yeah, I guess so. It's a binary. Yep. Yeah, but it's I'm fascinated by this result because there could be a blue prime minister in a week's time, couple of weeks, 8 weeks, if it's got anything to do with it. And I don't know how many times the less trusted nominee would end up being prime minister. I think that's a fascinating look, actually. So we'll just keep going.
I seem to remember you going like there's never been a party that's won an election without having most preferred prime minister, and I've held that in my brain, and then right down to the week we're like, oh, now we're neck and neck, and I'm like, fuck, I haven't even got that to fall back on. Unfair.
I think what I said with that is most of the time. I don't want to know. I don't quite know what happened in 2017 because 2017, Labor kind of pipped it away from National, who had a bigger party because of Winston. So I'm not sure about that. But the trend is mostly the preferred prime minister becomes the prime minister. Let's keep going on the story about trust.
And almost a quarter didn't want to back either. So Christopher Luxon, I'll start off with you. 33% of people trust you more. Is that an upsetting number for you?
Well,
Yes.
look, New Zealanders know that I've got real-world leadership experience, that I've come to this job over the last 2.5 years because I actually believe in New Zealand. I want it to do better. I've spent my whole career actually solving problems, getting things done, turning things around. And that's what New Zealand needs right now. That's exactly what I'm going to bring.
Isn't trust important, though?
Trust is important, and I'll continue to earn the trust of New Zealanders by actually following through and doing what I say and delivering results and outcomes for them. That's what New Zealand needs right now. There's been too much talk, too much going backwards. We need to go forforwards with positivity, ambition, aspiration.
Word salad, word
salad,
word salad.
Chris Hipkins, 43% of people trust you. What do you make of that figure? That's not even half.
You don't earn people's trust just with a whole lot of slogans with no substance behind them. You earn people's trust by getting out there, being upfront and honest with them every day. I know that there's no such thing as a perfect government, and there'll be days when things don't go according to plan. I will always own that. I will always front up. I will always try and answer people's questions. And so I think that is why people do trust me more than they trust him.
Trust him, that guy over there. Now, something else that was in the clip that I would have played, the longer clip, was who would you trust more to grow the economy or lead the economy? And yeah, that's not in here. It's in the actual thing. And National had about a 10% lead from memory over Labour, and I was just like, gosh, who do you trust more in the coalition? I think maybe that was the question, and it was National over National, that three-headed thing over the other three-headed thing. I'm thinking, like, gosh, has these people not even been watching what's been going on? Have you not seen that you can trust that group would stay together versus what's on the left? I thought that was an interesting. It makes me think. I wonder who was polled, Chewy.
Yeah, look, I think that's the danger for people like us, though, right? As it seems obvious because we look at it so much, but there's the people that aren't following it as closely, and they will cling to like the persuasive narrative that National is better for the economy, National is better for the rural sector. We know that that's not true. We can track down graphs that'll show that historically not to be true, going back 30 years.
Yeah.
But it's a persuasive myth that sticks in people's heads, and they will keep repeating it. We're the only party of law and order. We're the only party of the economy. We're the only party that will bridge the urban-rural divide with something. Like, I heard pretty much all of those things tonight.
Yeah.
Like, when they talked about how divided our country was and how were you going to bring us back together, the only thing that Luxon mentioned was the urban-rural divide. He wasn't mentioning the other things, the racial divides, the COVID divide, all of that sort of thing. So, and as far as I see it, there's only one party that's stoking that urban-rural divide. There's only one party that's doing it. So, yeah.
But it's interesting, right? From a marketing point of view, they're doing it by saying the other guys are doing it. Yeah, so they're stoking that divide by talking about how divisive the other side is, and in doing so, are the ones who are divisive.
Yeah, and there'll be people that are like, I like National, and National's my team, and I'm always voting National, and I don't like communists.
Marxists. It's Marxists now. That's what we get on Twitter. It's Marxists.
Oh, good. Yes. And they'll just stick to repeating that myth, that lie. It's not backed up by anything. Show me that National's better for the economy, and I guarantee you they'll turn around and they'll show that the massive growth under the Key government with no context. And the context was one of our major cities got smashed and we had to rebuild it. And you know what that looks like? That looks a lot like growth. It's not real growth. It's just fake recovery growth. I think around this question of the economy, there was a question that was posed to them about productivity in this country. We've got very low productivity. A big part of that is because we make each other rich by selling old houses to each other.
Yeah.
We don't actually make anything. The rural sector is productive, but outside of that, like a lot of our major businesses are overseas franchises. We're pumping money overseas. We don't do it for ourselves. So, I mean, neither of them had a really good answer for that. They talked about R&D and marketing ourselves overseas.
Yeah.
But they're not talking about building. And we have an opportunity here as we transition into a drastically different climate to build shit, to build those new industries. And neither one of them touched on it.
Yeah. Excuse my my distraction there for a minute. Our numbers just dropped by about 40% like that. And I just wondered, God, have we just been blocked on something again? But it doesn't seem to be. It might just be an anomaly. I tell you what, you can remember, most people can remember the Show Me the Money comment, John Key at the press debate, probably 2011, was it maybe? This will be the comment that gets played for the next 20 years from this election cycle, I think.
Said ruling out Winston Peters was an example of leadership. Why haven't you shown any?
We have said to you very clearly. I want New Zealanders to understand we're going to be a government that governs for them and actually gets things done, Chris. That's something you haven't delivered.
Was this an
we want a
example
strong
of political
two-party coalition arrangement with National and ACT. And as I said, I'll pick up the phone with New Zealand First in order to avoid the chaos that will ensue with Labour to Party.
The real chaos would be you trying to deal with Winston Peters and David Seymour around a cabinet table. They'd be running circles around you.
No disrespect, Chris. You haven't been able to manage your own cabinet. You lost 5 cabinet ministers in this year alone.
I've set very very high standards for ministers,
when the
and when they
media
don't
come
meet
to you
them,
and
they
then you-
don't continue in their jobs.
Yeah, but you've had 5 cabinet ministers go and depart under your leadership.
I think
I'm pausing this before the hit comes, because at this point I was going, from a political point of view, that's a pretty good strike from Mr. Luxon. Like, honestly, it's a pretty good angle from Mr. Luxon. But it's like, sporting analogy, the bowler bowls the perfect ball, but somehow, even though it's the perfect ball, the batsman still hits the 6.
You've had 5 cabinet ministers go and depart under your leadership.
I think people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones. None of my MPs beat people up with a bed leg.
There you go.
Look at that face.
Yeah.
Look at their faces, Pat.
Yeah.
That is a happy chippy who knows he's had a winner. And that is a, oh, fuck, I've got nothing from Luxon.
And whether that's actually, I noticed some Twitters around there. Oh, there's one from Judith Collins, stepped her way out of her coffin into the thing. None of my MPs says this texter, Aaron Darman. Judith Collins, what a pathetic and vile comment from a Prime Minister. What? To remind people that you've got someone who's committed a pretty violent offence, who tried to say, couldn't quite remember whether to use a bed leg against a 16-year-old or not.
Sorry. Do you know what word she couldn't use there?
What's that?
Untrue.
Yes.
That was an untrue comment.
So that will be going around the internet. I've already seen people clip it, and there'll be 8,000 to 10,000 views on Twitter already. I wonder if TVNZ. I wonder if TVNZ will get all those ones pulled down. I wonder if that'll happen.
Simon O'Connor responded to that one as well.
Right.
I saw that because Tova smacked him down for it. See if I can track it down.
So anyway, probably sometimes in a debate, it's not the policy or the politics or whatever that is the memorable thing. Sometimes there's a line, like the "show me the money" line. That line there is the line, and it's a. I remember I worked for what is now NZME, and I was working at News Talk ZB, and in Radio Sport was Tony Veach, right? And Tony Veach was working for Radio Sport when all the not allegations, but the facts came out about that he'd assaulted his wife and she'd got a broken back and this kind of stuff. It all came out. And what happened was he got let go and, all sorts of stuff around that. And then he came back and did some part-time stuff. And I can remember a conversation where there was a Radio Sport host talking about someone coming back to the Warriors who had been convicted of an assault. And the radio host sports position was, once they've done that, they should not be allowed back on the team again. And so, of course, what happened then was a flood of calls from going, excuse me, do you realise there's someone in your team who's done exactly what you're saying shouldn't be getting done and let back on? So you lose all credibility. So if there are issues, policy, legislation around violence around teenagers, for example, it's going to be very hard for National to sell that with Sam Uffindell sitting in the cabinet or certainly in a senior position, because no matter what they say about he's done his time, there is no remorse and no recognition there publicly, at least anyway, that we've seen. So it's going to be very hard for them to be able to be authentic, shall we say, with those kinds of issues if that person is sitting around the cabinet table.
Just a comment here from Twitch, maybe a little bit of context there. Chippy was referring to the fact that National candidate Sam Uffindell was expelled from a pretty prestigious school for hazing, assaulting a much younger student. That National did a report into it, which they promised to release, and then they just went away. Just don't even worry about it. I found Tova O'Brien and Simon O'Connor's interaction. I didn't realize that actually there were two of them. Oh no, it's Chris. No, it's two different people. Never mind. Chris Pink. I was wondering how quickly Hipkins would go negative, and now we know. Tova O'Brien comes in with a lol, that's rich. And then her shocked gasp, clutched pearls that Chris Hipkins has brought up, the bed leg. I think that's a win.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's an absolute win.
Look, it's also interesting, and I've got the article here that I was going to show at some stage because we haven't actually talked about this yet. this came up in the debate about going negative, and this is this line that they're trying to sell, National's trying to sell, is that there's been some research coming out around negativity. You know, this has been one of the attack lines of National, and Luxon used it in the debate tonight about the negativity that they accused Labor of doing. Chris Hipkins' COVID test last weekend wasn't the only positive thing coming out of the Labor election campaign, according to the latest results from the New Zealand social media study. More than 1,550 Facebook posts by political parties and their leaders have been analysed by a team from Victoria University of Wellington, with National proving to be far more negative than Labor during this election campaign so far. When subtracting negative posts from positive posts between September 11 to 24, 63% of Labor's Facebook posts included positive self-presentation. Meanwhile, just 5.5% of Nationals are positive. These results are not unexpected given Labor is the incumbent and National is wanting to change the government, says Dr. Moana Krul, who is leading the study. So this study done by academics say that, what does that mean? 94.5% of posts by National were negative or had negative connotations, and only 37% of Labor's were. So this whole narrative, this whole bullshit lie they've talked about, going negative, being negative, going negative, it's not the case. But it gets repeated, it gets repeated, it gets repeated, and then it gets believed. There's that old adage that lies will go around the world 3 times before truth gets its pants on. That's the example. Let us go and have a look at some more conversations around from the big debate tonight. And one of the ones I wanted to show was the quickfire answer, because they did quickfire answers the first time around. And when they did them first time around, one of our takeaways was how similar they are, how similar the Chris's are, and how different really is National from Labor when it gets to most of politics. We know that they vote together 70% of the time, and I think it might be interesting to show you guys once again, if you haven't seen it yet, the first part of the quickfire rounds from the TVNZ website.
I'll move on to quickfire questions now, and I'll start off with you, Chris Hipkins. Fees free for tertiary students, yes or no?
Yes.
Despite Labor's misinformation, yes.
Voting age at 16?
For local government elections, yes.
What about for our elections?
I personally support that, but I recognise that we don't have the numbers to be able to do that.
Never happen.
No, you've got to draw the line somewhere. 18's fine.
Should parents be fined if their kids don't turn up to school?
In theory, yes, but in reality, it doesn't actually change kids' attendance patterns.
Yes
should use the remedies that are available. That does include fines. So
all right, we'll go for yes and no. We'll try really hard. Should greyhound racing be banned, Chris Hipkins?
Interesting.
Yes, there's a review coming, and I think that would be the
really
place to be.
That.
But that's interesting, because I wonder how that'll go with Winston. You know, like, I mean, he's in the horse racing, but a lot of the horse racing industry will probably be a part of the greyhound racing industry as well. So we'll be seeing.
Assuming you get the call up, would you go to China in the first 6 months of your prime ministerialship?
Yes, I made a commitment last time I was in China that I would come back as soon as I could.
Chris Luxon?
Yes, I want to be circulating globally quickly. Yep.
And how often do you text the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese?
Generally when there's a reason.
This is a strange
so we had a
question.
conversation this week about the situation in Israel.
And for you, Chris Luxon, have you been texting him? Do you have his number?
Well, I do have his number because I know him well from my previous life. And so, so I do have his number, and I have talked to him when he was over here last time.
Texting him?
Not texting him, no.
Picking up the phone. Are you more of a caller or are you a texter?
I'm a verbal guy, and so I can get stuck on a phone for a long time talking.
I'm a verbal guy, whatever that means. I guess what he means is
it means
text.
As a telecommunications expert, it means that he has fat and uncoordinated thumbs.
So do I. I don't mind texting. Actually, no,
I
prefer
you're
to
not
talk
Prime
on the phone.
Minister. You're not trying to be Prime Minister, Pat.
Yeah.
I want a Prime Minister with agile, streamlined thumbs with the texting ability of a 14-year-old.
So, no, I mean, like, just again, that really just showed me that they're very similar in lots of areas, which is why, as we've been saying all along, that it's going to be ACT and the Greens who will be driving whatever government this is. They will be the point of difference. I guess ACT and New Zealand First, and then the Greens on the other side, should they be able to get there, who are going to be driving this government, whichever government does get in. Won't be these guys, because these guys are, there is a big Venn diagram which National and Labour certainly cross over in.
Yeah, they're all fighting over the centre, and they're all trying to do it in the most neoliberal way possible. And I think that's what someone like me finds really, really, really disappointing. I think, yeah, quickfire questions annoy the shit out of me because they're always so facile. I actually thought that Hipkins did a better job of moderating this than Jessica did at times. Really holding Luxon to his questions. The first one, I think the very first thing I tweeted out as I watched this is Luxon tried to state his credentials, I guess, by someone that had made big changes and taken businesses forward and that sort of thing. And of course, the most recent one is Air New Zealand, which is something you can look into.
Was he involved with Air New Zealand? I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, it's new information. It's just come out. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't got a reputation of someone that came in and turned Air New Zealand around.
No.
He was a rip and dip. He was in there, and he outsourced a lot of work to foreign multinationals. He didn't keep it in the country. He sacked a whole lot of people. It's just like, if you're going to get in there, like, that was a missed opportunity to sort of jump on him there and go, okay, yeah, but what have you done? You're not Rob Fife.
Let's go to one other part of the debate, which we're going to watch, and then that'll be it, which is talking about cutting benefits. And I thought this was quite a strong interaction from Chippy. They got into talking about benefits and who's going to get what and how much. And this is, again, remember the question from last night that we looked at. Mr. Luxon, how much will beneficiaries get? Will they get more under you guys or more under Labor? That almost exact question came up again today, and again, didn't get answered. Let's have a look at about 2 minutes of this.
You do want to make some changes. Advisory group after advisory group have said that it's fairer to link benefits to wages. You don't want to do that. You want to effectively cut $500 million a year, $2 billion over 4 years. Isn't that taking money away from beneficiaries?
No, we're going to increase benefits each and every year.
Thousands more children in poverty.
Hang on, let me finish.
Thousands more children in poverty.
Chris, what's thousands more people? It's putting 60,000 more people.
This is strong by Chippy, and in fact, at some stage shortly, he actually takes control of the narrative and Luxon stops talking.
On unemployment
thousands more children in poverty because of your $2 billion in benefit cuts. Why won't you actually answer questions on it? I know why you won't answer questions on it, because here's two numbers that New Zealanders should remember. $2,000 a year. Excellent. Our lowest income households would lose $2,000 a year under Christopher Luxon's plan. And here's the other number that New Zealanders should remember, 300 mega landlords, that's landlords that have millions and millions of dollars in properties, they would get $1 million each in tax cuts. I think that shows that your moral compass is entirely wrong. You want to take from the people who have the least to give to the people who have...
Here we go again, giving facts and figures that are inconvenient. Here we go again. We don't want to hear this. Here we go again. This is not helping my cause. And this is where you have to calm down. This was probably the strongest that Chippy was in the whole debate, I think. And this, remember, I'll say it again, this was Luxon's question, and Chippy took over, and there's no pushback from the numbers. No pushback at all.
What's your response to that, Chris?
I think that's... But in saying that also...
this is the beneficiary, or a person who works with the beneficiary now, and she actually almost derailed it by coming in with this question, because it stops, but Chippy then gets back on point and finishes it really, really strongly.
Labour hasn't done anything to eliminate it at all.
And the question from Agnes there is Labour haven't done enough. And doesn't she have a point there? Because you had a once-in-a-generation opportunity.
The focus has been taken off Luxon, and I thought, oh gosh, we don't want to see this. But he brings it back quite well.
Still living in severe poverty. Is that good enough?
No, it's not, and our job is not done. We've lifted 77,000 children out of poverty, and I will not stop until we've lifted all of those children out of poverty.
But there are still 144,000 children living in severe income poverty.
And there's more work to be done. We have to lift those children out of poverty, but we're not going to do that by cutting benefits. That is what the National Party are proposing to do. $2,000 per year per household.
Back on
let's
message.
get your response to that.
It is absolutely true.
I mean, here Chris goes again, right? right, and misinformation. We are not cutting benefits. We are increasing benefits each and every year.
So what do you think the difference is between what we would give them and what we would give them?
We're basing it off making sure that people are protected by the cost of living and inflation.
So where do the $2 billion in cuts come from?
They're not cuts, Chris. We're increasing benefits each and every year.
$2 billion is currently budgeted that you're going to cut. That is a cut.
Mate, listen, look, you need to listen to Taylor Swift when she says, I need you to calm down, right? That's really important. You've got to listen to my
I'm not going to calm down about you cutting benefits to give landlords who have plenty tax breaks.
Chris, you need
300 landlords do not need $1 million in tax breaks. And people who are living on benefits, you're going to put thousands more children in poverty. Your moral compass is gone.
And listen, please, okay? You need to listen and be respectful.
All right.
So there you go. That was really, really strong from Christopher Hipkins. And I think the reason that Luxon couldn't hit back or didn't hit back was, how can you? Now, I guess for clarity, we should probably say when Luxon says we're not cutting, is a technicality that's true. They're not going to go from $500 a week to $499 a week, but they're going to be increasing it disproportionately. So people are going to be going backwards. And they have announced cuts from that area. Because remember, there's a 6.5% saving have to be made from each of these departments. So there are cuts coming for the departments or for the way that working incomes works, but not to the people. But they're going to be disproportionately worse off every single year, which is why I think the number was $17,000 per annum for the disabled after 4 years. And it doesn't mean they're going to go backwards 17,000. It means the disparity between what Labour would give them and what National will give them will be that figure. Chew it.
It's weasel words. It's absolutely weasel words. He can go, no, we're going to increase it every year, but we're going to increase it in a different, unrecommended and ineffective way. But there's an increase every year. It's just absolute bullshit. I thought that moment from Chippy was his most dominant. And I also want to say, I think that woman's name was Agnes.
Yep.
I want to say good on her. Like every time that they've had these debates, they've pulled out men on the street, for lack of a better word, and used them essentially as here's a real person, and you're just used as a prop. I love that the prop has gone, well, hang on, I'm not saying Labour's done a great job either. We want whoever is in government to do better. And I say good job to Agnes there.